For more on the impact on the region, Professor Shahram Akbarzadeh joins us now. He is the research professor in Middle East and Central Asian politics at Deakin University in Melbourne. Professor, well, the Taliban was last in power in 2001. The world in 2001 was very different from the world that we know now. The Taliban, as well, we would expect, would not be the same, as we've seen the last few weeks from July and possibly even before that, engaging with Russia, with China, sending high-level delegations there. Now, it is interested in achieving some kind of legitimacy and support for trade and investment. Do you see these inclinations on the part of the Taliban in any way checking what it might do when it is actually governing Afghanistan?
Well, thanks for having me. I think the Taliban is very committed to send out a message to the international community that it has changed, that it is not going to pursue the barbaric rule that they imposed on Afghanistan while they were in power pre-2001. And that relates to violations of human rights, women's rights, minorities, other religious groups. But the proof is in the pudding. There is nothing to really vindicate that kind of positive imaging. Some reports suggest that once they took Kandahar, they advised all female workers at the bank to go home because women are not allowed to work. We really have to see what happens when they are in power in Kabul. There are some disturbing news about the Taliban troops knocking on people's doors because they're suspected of working with government. Whether or not this addresses international concerns is a really different matter. The Taliban is very much aware that it needs to have some kind of recognition by its neighbors, by China, by Russia, Iran, Pakistan, India. All these regional powers have an interest in Afghanistan. And the Taliban are keen, I think, not to antagonize the neighboring states.
All right, if we can very roughly, and perhaps not too helpfully, but group these different countries. So immediate neighbors, you've got Pakistan and Iran, and within the region, and with some proximity, and therefore very interested in what might happen, you've got Russia, China, and India. Now, each has different concerns, each has different vested interests as well. If you could spell that out for us in a way that we can see a coherent, cohesive picture.
Well, I'm not sure if we can have a cohesive picture because it's a very messy picture on the ground. Iran has been trying to hedge its bets, been establishing ties with the Taliban as well as supporting the government in Kabul. President Karzai's government and Ghani's government in Kabul, with the idea, with an eye on what might happen if the Taliban come to power. So that has always been a concern for Iran. Pakistan has had slightly different, but not that different, not so different objectives and concerns in Pakistan in terms of Afghanistan. Pakistan has been trying to and supporting the Taliban, is looking forward to enhancing its influence in Afghanistan. So this could be opening up opportunities for Pakistan. On the other hand, if you look at China, China is very interested in what's going on. China is a power that has not been engaged in any kind of military conflict in Afghanistan, but looks at Afghanistan as a strategic piece of a puzzle for its Belt and Road Initiative. So having some sort of stability in Afghanistan, regardless of who's in power, would be welcomed by China. China also has major concerns with its own restive population in Xinjiang and is very keen to ensure that a Taliban victory does not embolden or create inspiration for separatist movements in its own territory. So there are a number of pros and cons, and all these various powers have to play them against each other.
All right, let's pick up on your point on China. Of course, China on that point of its own separatists, its concerns about what's happening in the Xinjiang region. In fact, one of the suggestions was that it met with the Taliban political bureau leader on the 28th of July on the condition that the Taliban would agree not to continue to provide support for these forces in Xinjiang. And China has said, but at the very same time as it was meeting with the Taliban Politburo leader, 12 days before that, China's president was on the phone with the Afghan president, saying that we respect Afghan sovereignty, national rights, etc., etc. So China's hedging. Do you see a point at which you could tell the Taliban, you are not moderate or stable enough for me to invest in you, you are a danger to this region, I can put pressure on you to obey certain standards of behavior so that we continue to support you, not just politically, but also in terms of trade and investment?
Right, I think that's somewhat wishful thinking. I don't think China is interested in exerting that kind of influence or pressure on Afghanistan. I think China is very keen to send this message that China is governed by the principle of not interference in the internal affairs of other states. That's a very important principle that China has been pushing and advocating in all its international agreements and engagements. So by the same token, China would expect any government in Kabul, whether it's Taliban or others, to respect the same principle and not interfere in the affairs of China, in Xinjiang province, for example.
Thanks so much for all that.
So this would be a significant...
do continue. Just wrap up that point, please.
Sure. So I think this could be a significant diplomatic win for China if China does manage to establish relationship with the Taliban and present its own, enhance its own image as a regional power that can contribute to stability in the region.
Thanks so much for all that. Professor Shahram Akbarzadeh, research professor in Middle East and Central Asian politics at Deakin University.